Hello, it is time for us to get super comfortable with analyzing grade 10 theory sonatina movements. You will find that in your email you have attachments for you to print out as part of this studying method. So ahead of doing the rest of this video, please print things out and put all of the sections on each of the sonatinas that I have on the assignment list that is also attached. Please be careful. It is truly unfortunate that there were so many sonatinas in G major that were options that fit the grade 10 so well. So make sure that you have opus numbers and composers completely aligned. Now, if you're coming to the video at this point with your sections marked on your piece, make sure you've got your red pen in hand, and let's have a go at this. So the first one that I am going to do is the Sonatina in C by Spindler. So make sure it looks like this. And in this, we had label A, B, A, C, A, codetta with the key for each letter or label. I asked what form this was to label any links that were possibly there and label a pedal point with a horizontal line for the full duration. So I am actually at the piano so that you can hear what I'm talking about, as well as see when I hold up the score. So this piece starts. So right there, we ended with the 5-7-5 equals a half cadence in C major. We would also accept at that point that there was 2 bars in G major, so it could be authentic in G major. But we go back to C major immediately. So the feeling, because of the speed, is that it's a half cadence. Either one is counted correct. And then we have so at bar 8, this is where you should have 5-1 authentic cadence in C major, and then in the next bar, B in G major written. So there was no link between these two. You had a cadence, and you were immediately into a new melody, because it was. So you can hear right there. So bar 16, when we mark our cadence, it is 2-5-1, but then we have this section that has only one clef, and it's got both F and F sharp in it, a G and a G sharp. It has an unsettled key. That is your link, and you would put it right here where we have the first note after the cadence. So we've just had. And then we have A section starting in 21. And we're back in C major. It's exactly like the opening. And it is 8 bars long. It's exactly the same. So that means at bar 29, we have C section in A minor. So we end up with, after 4 bars, a half cadence in A minor. And then we notice that the next thing that happens is that we end up going to C major, but then we come back to A minor. So the question is, where does this section end? And in this case, my apologies, what we have to do is go, what is the content here? So we've gone to the minor. Back to A minor. 43 to 44, we have our authentic cadence in A minor. Now, when we look ahead, I'm just going to have to put papers down. It isn't until down here in 58, I believe, 58, that we have the return of A. All of this is link. So it wasn't just that it was the section that had no left hand. When we start at the pickup to 45, you can hear that we're modulating. It's not even modulating. We're just going through a bunch of tonicizations. So the key is not settled. So that isn't part of our A minor C section because this isn't an A minor anymore. So this link is quite long. And then we have our final A section, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars again, ending with 5/1 authentic cadence in C major. And then we have a codetta in C major starting at 66. And what happens here is we have a tonic pedal point that goes all the way, that low C is your pedal point. We would accept it if it went all the way to the end, but technically speaking, it's supposed to be the same C. And they could say, what is the source of the melodic material of the codetta? And you'd be going, well, it's got the same rhythm as the A section, so that's what it is. And then, so really in there, that's just a whole bunch of 1-5-1s in the key of C major to round it off. So you should have answered that this was a rondo form, R-O-N-D-O. So when people ask me about links, the answer is they may or may not be there. So sometimes we can have a rondo with 0 links. Sometimes we can have a rondo with a link between absolutely every section. And sometimes we just have a link here and there, as happened this place here. And you can refer to Für Elise by Beethoven for another excellent rondo to go over, where you would find that there are a couple of links. So there's a link of only 3 chords going between the A to the B, and then a longer link from the B back to the A, no link going to C, and a longer link from C back to A. So it's inconsistent, and that's perfectly legitimate. So that is the rondo form. Just we haven't had as much opportunity to practice that. Just doesn't seem to have been on the exams that have come up lately. So I wanted to make sure we went through that. So now what we're going to do is the sonatina, and everything else is in G. This one is by Kuhlau, and it is Opus 55, number 2, movement 1. So it's the one that has all of this, and then it is in 3/4 time. Okay, so in here, we have a full sonata form. The rest of our examples are a full sonata form. So you were looking for an exposition, and we'll notice this exposition is theme 1 in key, theme 2 in key, and codetta. Your list, we will always tell you if there's a bridge there or not. And you can see that this time there is not. So exposition at the very beginning, theme 1 in G major at the very beginning. Now, I'm going to tell you that when it comes to figuring out where sections end, when you're dealing with classical music, being able to count to 4 is definitely your friend, because this was the period of time where the symmetry of the 4-bar phrase was the most common. That doesn't mean it's there every single time, but it is there a lot of the time. So figuring out multiples of 4 is a fabulous thing. So in here, we know that theme 1's in a key and themes 2 is in a key. So when you're given this situation, you say to yourself, well, the C sharps become an important aspect where, and where is the cadence? So in line 2, you should have the cadence marked here as a half cadence, and that C sharp here is just a neighbor note. It is not a chord tone. So we are still in the key of G major. So that's a half cadence in G major. And then we've got theme 2 in D major, because of course we went to the dominant. Now notice delicato. If there is a descriptive term like dolce, cantabile, or delicato, that is telling you something starts here. The composer is giving you the heads up that you need to change the character of the piece at this point. So it's a new theme. Okay, so then we have to say, where does it happen that theme 2 cadences out? And right there, at the end of line 3, we have something that we will later hear from Mozart an awful lot. This right here, there's your dominant 13th passing note to the tonic for an authentic cadence, and your codetta begins right here on our 16th notes, and it is in D major as well. Now, the development begins right after the repeat sign all the time. People question me, is it possible to have sonata form without a repeat sign? And the answer is, it is. It's not common, and you won't have it on the exam, so set that aside. So the development is at bar 21, and we hear. So as soon as we end up with those repeated notes like that, and no scales with 16th notes, this has got the source of this area needs to be theme 1. And the D sharp is a chromatic passing tone. We are still in G major. This particular sonatina doesn't really use a whole bunch of keys in the development, which is a little bit unusual. The next thing we notice is that when we start doing this, the bass is D here. And then it does that repeat up a bit. So the dominant prep is essentially the entire development. Now that can only work when this is something like a grade 3, 4, or 5 sonatina. Once you get past to grade 6 and beyond, the development's going to be longer, I guarantee it. But notice that the horizontal line goes all the way past these rests to just the last count before the recapitulation starts with theme 1 in the key of G major. A lot of people stop it here, but that's implying that this is not the V prep. So we can't give you full marks. So make sure that your horizontal line goes all the way to the moment right before the recapitulation. The recapitulation may or may not start on a count 1. So it has nothing to do with the count of the bar. It has to do with where's the first note of the recap. Now, one of the things that I said here is notice that Kula has changed theme 1 a bit. Originally, it's in G major. Yes, there's 2 notes with accidentals, but they are non-chord tones, so they don't affect anything. When we get to the recapitulation, it has been lengthened, and there's a little bit of applied chord situation that it feels like is in place. But then when you really analyze it, no, it's just non-chord tones again. Still G major. So our theme 2 begins on count 2 at the word delicato again, and we are in the home key. Theme 2 plays out with the exact same amount of bars as it did in the exposition, ends with the dominant 13 for the codetta in G major to be right here at the beginning of the last line. So in there, if you take a screenshot, you can blow it up if you need to see my printing even bigger. So that is a very, very basic sonata form. Now we're going to go to Sonatina in G by Lavignac. And I trust that I've been saying his name right for all of these years. It's how my teacher said it, but not fully sure. So it should start with a descending scale. So in this one, we do have to find a bridge. And again, I say, you need to be putting in your cadences in order to know that you are for sure beginning things properly. So in here we have wow, that sounded just like the opening. However, theme 1 is just 8 bars. So it ends the end of line 1 is a half cadence. So you'd have like a 7/5 to 5/6/4/5/3, half cadence in G major. The bridge, I have mentioned to you that almost half the time the bridge begins with the same melody as theme 1. And this is that case. It changes from the opening and it gets you to D major. And now when we look at the score, you can see that right here, this left hand looks different than the left hand up here. That happens almost every time in theme 2. The accompaniment style is different. So if you're looking at like a sea of notes and going, oh, where do I start? Look for things that are easier to find, like changes in the left hand accompaniment. So, and again, there was the word dolce here. So this is theme 2 in D major. So right there, had I asked for a pedal point, that entire theme 2 has a tonic pedal point. The D was at the beginning of every bar. So then that would go, the pedal point would go all the way till 25, 26, bar 27, actually to the downbeat of 28. To label a codetta, it would be at bar 25. Now, what happens here? The downbeat of 25 is the last chord of theme 2. It is also the first sound of the codetta. Now, when you're in university, they won't be calling this a codetta. They'll be calling this a cadential extension because really it's just 5-1, 5-1, 5-1. But codetta it is here. And then we have the development. Now we have, okay, so here in the development, any key on the circle of fifths is possible. Don't stick with just one to the right, one to the left, and the relatives. Any key is possible. And you have to really look at the accidentals and go, well, B flat, E flat, and F natural means that we are in B flat major. So one of the things that we find out in the next grade is actually that's not so far afield because the parallel minor of G major is G minor, and this is just the relative of it. So it's easy to actually get into this key and out of it when one understands that it has that relationship. So we have B flat major, still B flat major. So the end of 39 is B flat major. And then what most people do wrong here is they say, wow, it looks like we go to D minor. And I'm like, no. I realize there's a C sharp and a B flat, but there's also F sharps all the way through this. We have returned to G major in bar 40. Seven diminished 4/3 of 5 to 5, 7 diminished 4/3 of 5 to 5, and one more time, and then this is 5. And the recapitulation starts in 46. So it turns out that your dominant preparation here is that area that is G major, because it's really all about 5 in G major that happens to be decorated by an applied chord. Because it's repeated over and over in the same circumstances, we can't look at that as modulating anywhere else, because it's just counts as like one thing repeated 3 times, and that F sharp still in the left hand. So dominant prep would be 40 to the end of 45. Recapitulation is theme 1 in G major at bar 46. Bridge is at bar 54. Again, it starts. And then at the word dolce in bar 62, we have theme 2 in G major. And our codetta is at 70, going all the way to the end. Theme 2 in G major still has a pedal point. Now, in here, one of the questions that I have is bars 5 and 6. What kind of sequence is this? These questions can often come up with regards to sonatinas because they sneak in the sequences. So we have So you have to stop and say, what are the chords? And I recommend using root quality symbols. So E7 over D, A over C sharp, D7 over C, G over B. That means our root movement is E, A, D, G. Each one of those is a fifth apart, therefore it is descending fifths. I know it doesn't look like it, but that is a descending fifth sequence. And of course, it's going to occur again later in another way. And now we're going to go on to the final sonatina in G, Opus 36, number 5 by Clementi. And it is your longest one. So I'm giving you all options, because sometimes what we do on this exam is instead of giving you an entire short sonatina, we give you just the exposition of a long sonatina. And then you have to be able to deal with what we call theme groups, where you might have usually it's not 1A, 1B, usually it's 2A, 2B, and it might even be 2C. When we say 2A, we're saying 2 is the second key area. And when we go A, B, C, they're little a, B, C, then we are saying this is second key area, theme A, theme B, theme C. So it's a way of separating out different melodies that aren't equated to each other, but are still in that particular key. So This is actually a really cool grade 8 sonatina. Now, one of the problems that comes up here is people notice that the cadences have a C sharp. So when we look at bar 4, we see that C sharp and people go, oh, we've gone to D major already. Wow, that was a short theme. The C sharp is an appoggiatura. It doesn't change the key. So it's very important that you look at the functionality of each note that has an accidental so that you can figure out where things go. And it is not possible to say that theme 1 is 4 bars. Okay, and here's the reason. If we look at the left hand, we've got 1 for a bar, 1 for the second bar, 4 in second inversion for the third bar, back to 1. If there is no dominant chord with a resolved leading tone, it's not a phrase. So we can't end anything there. And no, we can't mark that as a pedal point because that G was a chord tone in all of the chords there. So when you mark a pedal point, make sure that at some point that note does not fit into a chord. So we end up with the cadence for this. I said, check out multiples of 4. If it's not at 4, check out bar 8. We end up with, and then you'll notice that there is a rest after the right hand and after the left hand. We start our bridge here and notice that again, that is really theme 1 just down an octave. But now it changes. The C sharp becomes a chord tone. And 2, 6, 5, 7 to 1. So right here, we have our theme 2A. So notice, I'm just going to put it really close, 2A in D major. This, that's your melody. It's called a florid melody because it's running around on the 16th notes. That's why we practice our technique, of course. Okay. The other thing that I have marked here is just to notice this chord right here is the chord that finishes the cadence for the bridge. It is also the first note of theme 2. That is called an elision when one chord functions 2 ways. It's the end of one thing and the beginning of the next thing. The reason I'm telling you this is sometimes when people find cadences, they then just go, the next bar must be the theme. And it's like, well, you need to actually check the melody. Yes, we need to find our cadences, but you can't get away from actually looking at the melody because we are supposed to be labeling the themes. So as I said, theme 2A, so whenever you have a full bar trill and the left hand is outlining a dominant 7th, this is a stop sign with a flashing light saying it's a new theme coming up. That is just one of the things that the classicists like to do. And what happens here, we have another elision. There's your 1 of your authentic cadence, and it goes on to theme 2B, which has a left-hand melody here. Two, 6, 5, 1. And it's another elision because the codetta starts on the downbeat of 32, where we really get 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. 5, 1, 5, 1. And then we have a development. Okay, so the first bar sounds like we're in G major. You can't say that that's G major because you have to look to see where that chord resolves because that dictates the key. And because it resolves to G minor, we have to label from the pickup in the development that this is in the key of G minor. And that is just your source would be theme 1. When they're asking you for source material, it can be theme 1, can be the bridge, can be theme 2. Here it could be 2A or 2B, can be the codetta. It can be any of the above. If you are really feeling uncertain about the names you've put on, you can always quote a bar number. But essentially, you can just put in a theme. Now, what I have here, so I'm going to start. So this is how I've got my development labeled. So development's over here, G minor. And then we end up with a half cadence here in G minor. That C sharp does not change the key. It is an appoggiatura. And then we end up with F natural over here. Ta-da, we are in B flat major. And you know that G minor to B flat major is just going to the relative, so that makes sense. In B flat major, look at how long this cadence is. It takes that cadential 6/4 goes over that whole 2 bars. And then we end up with a bunch. Oh, we have a new accidental, but the A flat doesn't continue on. So this is, when we get to here, we've got an F natural, so that's 5/7 of C. And it would be a small 2 because it's C minor. And you have to look at bar 45 to determine that it is C minor, not C major. So always look to where the 5 chord resolves to know what key you're in. And then it comes back to G major, right here, where we have 5/7 of 5, 5, small 1/6/4, because it's G minor triad, not G major, but the 5 is the same chord for G major and G minor. So this is the dominant prep for G major with some, it's called chromaticism or color that is put in. So our dominant preparation goes for this entire time. And notice that I stopped it under the rest of count 3 because count 4 is the recapitulation, theme 1 in G major. The bridge is at the pickup to 60. And again, like the opening exposition, it quotes the first theme, and theme 2A in G major is the last 2 bars of this page. So that'd be 67, 68. So that's 2A. 2B starts here where we have the bass melody coming in. Notice there's that long trill that ends the 2A here. And then we have our codetta for the last line. Now, the thing that I just want to confirm with you before I say congratulations, you got through this prep. When we have a theme 2A, 2B, the tonic of the key must stay the same. So if 2A is in A major, 2B will not be in E major. The only differential that can happen is major-minor tonality. Sometimes the composers want to have a little bit more color. So they'll have like 2A in A minor and 2B in A major, and you were actually expecting A major all along, so the exposition ends in the key you're expecting. So you can have parallel major-minor, but other than that, 2A and 2B are in the exact same key. So again, look to the cadence that ends the section because that tells you what key that's in, even if there's more accidentals at the beginning of the melody. We do have people who misinterpret accidentals because they are not looking at the cadence. And there we go. Thank you very much for spending time on this to help you with your exam. I'm sure that you will be fine. Thank you very much.